Hello everybody, today is the anniversary of the death in 1977 of Elvis Presley, of whom President Carter said after Presley's early death that he had completely changed the whole nature of American culture. Well, he certainly made a huge contribution to it, but had a very sad last few years. In 1970, he was in conversation with President Richard Nixon about a campaign to stop people taking drugs. But by 1977, he'd become so addicted himself that his team often wondered whether he'd get through a set. He was so sluggish and so overtaken by the effect of the drugs he was taking, partly perhaps a result of the breakup of his marriage in the early 1970s, but also perhaps of something else. He was asked much earlier on in his career by a reporter who said to him, when you started singing, Elvis, you said you wanted to be rich, famous and happy. Is that what's happened? And Elvis replied, no, I'm lonely as hell. And clearly there was about the life that he led and the fame that he the fame that surrounded him, that made him feel very isolated, and perhaps that's what led him towards the drugs. But I think it may also have been something else, because he was also asked at one point towards nearer to the end of his career whether he was happy with his image, and he said being a human being is one thing, but living up to the image is another. And it was clear that for him the strain, the pressure of having to keep up with the stereotype that people had made of him, the idea that people had got of who he was, living up to that image was putting enormous strain and stress on him. And I think sometimes that can be true of us in a much less public sort of way, that we have an idea that we should come across to people in a certain way. And if we don't do that, if we don't succeed in satisfying ourselves, at least, that we're coming over to people like that, we feel as though we're letting ourselves down. And sometimes too it's an image that we want to maintain just for our own sake. Our own self-image, our own idea of ourselves depends on us being able to behave in a certain way, achieve certain things. As we get older, there are things that we can't achieve that we could achieve when we were younger, and so our self-image has to change. And sometimes that's hard, but at any time of life, not to feel that we're living up to the image we have ourselves can be very undermining of our confidence. But actually the important thing is not to be an image, but to be a human being, to be who we are at whatever stage of life we've reached, and to be content with who we are. And if we can manage to do that, I think we shall avoid some of the pressure that led to Elvis Presley's sad and untimely death.